Hey there, it's Lara here with your horoscopes for the Virgo new moon that happens on August 27th at 4:17 a.m. That's Eastern time. Welcome. Thanks for being here. I am rough and ready today, sitting on my living room floor. Got some, I don't know, weird lighting in my face, but I had a minute to sit down and do this because life has been chaotic, to say the least, lately. And I wanted to do this for you. Every week, I'm worried that I'm not going to be able to, or every 2 weeks, I do these videos every new and full moon. And, I love to do this. And so I'm worried that I'm not going to get it out to you. And I guess, wouldn't be the end of the world if that was the case. And it may happen at some point. But I could do it today. So here I am. And I'm glad you're here too. Thanks for joining me. If you haven't yet, please hit the subscribe button and stick around. Leave me a comment and let me know what you think. Okay, so we're here to talk about the Virgo new moon. That's happening, like I said, August 27th at 4 degrees, 4 minutes Virgo. And it's in an exact square to Mars in Gemini, right? We talked about Mars being in Gemini for the long haul in last video a couple of weeks ago. And Mars is there for almost 7 months when Mars generally only spends about 6 or 7 weeks in a sign. But because it will retrograde in October in Gemini, it's there for a long, long time. So, and it is playing a very significant role in this upcoming new moon. So we're going to talk about that and a couple of other things as we move forward here. And of course, when we get past the intro, which I really highly suggest you listen to, because if you skip the intro, you miss really important context for everything I tell you in the horoscopes when I go through all 12 signs. And if you're just listening to the horoscopes, I mean, your prerogative, but it's not going to make as much sense. It won't be as meaningful to you if you don't listen to the intro. So if you have the time to do that, I highly recommend. I don't know, I got this weird shadow thing going on here. I don't know what's happening. Anyways, hopefully you don't mind. So where do we start? Let's talk about, first and foremost, what is a new moon? Well, a new moon is when the sun and the moon come together and they conceive of something new, right? Eventually birth something new. Those two luminaries pair up, and we can think of it as like a conception point or an initiation point where there are some kind of new beginnings happening, right? We get the first inkling of something, or we may intentionally begin something, right? And it's always best to use the astrology to do that, meaning wherever the particular new moon is happening for you, whatever life area, whatever house that's in for you, that's where you want to intentionally start things. And now, of course, the degree to which what you intend and what you start, the degree to which that is successful depends on a lot of things. And one of those things is what exactly is happening at the time of the new moon? What kind of a energy is going on, right? What's flavoring the new moon? And how is it interacting with your particular birth chart? We know that any astrological event that happens in close proximity to something in your chart will have a more personal flavor to it. So you'll have a more personal or potent experience with things that are closely hitting your chart. And in this case, that would be if you have important points, or if you have planets, angles around 4 degrees of Virgo, or the other mutable signs as well, because the new moon will be either in opposition or in square to those. So the other mutable signs would be Pisces, which is Virgo's opposite sign, Gemini, which is where Mars is, and Sagittarius. So if you've got planets, points, angles, your sun, your moon, your rising, what have you, around 4 degrees, give or take. So anywhere from really like the beginning of the sign, like 1 degree, 0, 1 degree of Virgo or the other mutable signs that I mentioned, to 7 degrees ish, you know, even maybe 8 degrees, you're going to have a more personal experience with this particular lunation. But everybody has Virgo somewhere in their chart, and everybody will be experiencing the energy of this new moon in some way, in some area of life. So sometimes we experience these things very personally. Other times it's like the people in our lives or the people around us, you know, that we're surrounded with in our sphere, so to speak. They're the ones that are going through the things that we're witnessing or being somehow, you know, involved in some way. Or we see events playing out in the world around us, right? That align with whatever event is happening. And in this case, it's the Virgo new moon. So that's what the new beginning is about, right? It's or the new moon is about. It's an initiation. It's an inception point. It's a time for planting new seeds in a particular area of life, and in a way that makes sense to Virgo, because it's a Virgo new moon. So if you're a Virgo sun sign, you know, then you'll be having your birthday. It's Virgo season, so happy birthday to Virgo sun signs. If you're a Virgo rising, which I happen to be, then this is our new moon that takes place in the first house of self. And we'll get to all of those details when we go through each of the signs. But just to touch on that, because we're going to talk a little bit about Virgo and what is Virgo. Virgo is a mutable earth sign, and Virgo is very skilled at prioritizing and working with efficiency, you know, making things very, very efficient. Virgo is focused on the details. It takes care of the details, and those details are necessary to sort of allow us to also take care of the big picture. So what do I mean by that? So the big picture things in life, right? Our careers, our families, you know, these sorts of big areas that consume our relationships, you know, things that take up a lot of bandwidth. And how do we address those things in the best way possible? Let's put it that way. Well, if we are taking care of ourselves, our health, our hygiene, you know, if we're doing the practical day-to-day things, taking care of those things on the practical day-to-day, then we have an easier time with the bigger picture things. And I just, you know, I use sort of family, home, relationships, career, but I mean, whatever is a big picture thing to you, you know, that can be different things for different people. So if we don't take care of those small details, then that can have a significant impact in the long run, as I just said. If we do take care of them, that can also have a significant impact, you know, for the better sort of thing. So I jotted down a couple of examples here. I just have like a page of notes real quick that I had time to write out. So I'm going to use the example of, because Virgo is associated in the Northern Hemisphere, which is where tropical astrology, you know, Western astrology is based on. Because Virgo is associated with that time of year when we're reaping the harvest, we're preparing for the, you know, the coming sort of months when the weather starts to get cooler, and we have our eye on the future in Virgo season, whether it be back to school, whether it be big projects coming up at work, whether it be lots of activities coming up, whether it be, just knowing that winter is coming in the Northern Hemisphere. And, so we do, we prepare our houses and we deal with the garden, and the outdoor jobs and activities that all need to be done before winter comes. Like, you may be somebody who heats with wood, so you have to make sure that you have enough wood to heat with for the winter, right? And if you think about how a lot of people lived back in the day, and some people are kind of going back to this way of life. If you think about things like, if we don't do the harvesting and the canning and the preserving and those kinds of things, if we don't take care with that and we don't do it properly, then we end up with, a food shortage for the winter, or things that have gone bad or spoiled food because we didn't take the time and pay attention to the details when it mattered. So you see, those things can have an effect in the long run. If we forget like a decimal point, or if we didn't, if we neglect to read the fine print, for example, in a contract, then we can cause ourselves a lot of headaches in the long run, right? Unnecessary problems down the road that could have been avoided if we had just paid a little closer attention and we had just tried to get it right the first time, which is, even not the first time, but we tried to get it right as best we can. And Virgo is very concerned with that, with making things better, with improving things, with fine-tuning things, with also separating the wheat from the chaff, right? With getting rid of what we don't need, what's sort of waste or unnecessary, and keeping, what really matters, what's really important. So it's a time of year when a lot of people do a closet purge and things like that, even purifying, cleaning. Some people do spring cleaning, but a lot of people also do a big clean in the fall. I know I tend to do that. Maybe that's my Virgo rising speaking. But so, like I was saying, taking care of our health, right? That allows us to enjoy things and do the things that are important to us in life. Because if we are poorly, if we're not in good health, then everything else suffers. Our quality of life suffers, and Virgo knows that. If we keep our spaces clean, then we have, that impacts our overall wellness. I mean, in all ways. It can impact our mental health. It can impact our physical health as well, right? So Virgo knows it's important to take care of the details. Virgo knows the devil is in the details. And if we skimp on the details, then we can cause ourselves problems down the road, right? That's why Virgo can have this association with being very nitpicky or critical. And when Virgo's not operating at its best, yes, the energy can definitely present that way. But the intention of Virgo is to improve things for all of us, right? To make sure that we are getting the best quality and we are having the best experience, and things are sort of just so, because when things are as good as we can make them, then everybody reaps the rewards of that, and Virgo knows that. So a couple of other things that I jotted down here about Virgo. Virgo is very resourceful and independent, right? The word Virgo stems from the root virgin. And every time I do a video that focuses on Virgo, I make sure that I let you know that that word didn't used to mean how we interpret it now, right? Back in the day, Virgo, or virgin rather, meant whole unto oneself. So somebody who did not need another to complete them, right? And I mean, we can go into the mythology and stuff, but I'm not going to do that here. But you're free to obviously look that up for yourself if you're interested. But the point is Virgo knows how to take care of itself. Is very resourceful. I think of sort of like that image of, you know, the old crone living in the woods, that, you know, all on her own, that knows how, you know, other people come to for the medicines and the cures and all of that stuff. And she knows how to use the powers of nature, has reverence for nature, and is able to, you know, chop wood, carry water. Virgo is very much about that, and feed herself, and really how to work with the ebbs and flows of nature optimally. So Virgo is very resourceful. Virgo knows that there is a time for everything, right? And sometimes it's the time to work so that we can reap the rewards down the road. Because if we, you know, we reap what we sow, right? And if we neglect the details in the present because we just want to get to the good part, or we only want to experience the good and enjoyable part, eventually, like, that's not sustainable. It runs out because you haven't done the initial work. You haven't laid that foundation and taken care of those details, right? So that's a little bit about Virgo. I could say more and more about Virgo. Virgo, to me, is one of the more misunderstood and misinterpreted signs. And, you know, also I'm a Virgo rising, so I have some personal interest there. So anyway, what else do I want to tell you about this new moon? Well, whenever we're looking at an event, right? In this case, a new moon, we want to look at what planet rules that particular event. What planet rules the new moon in Virgo? Well, Mercury is the ruler of Virgo, also the ruler of Gemini. But so we want to look at this new moon, what's Mercury doing? Where's Mercury in the chart? And is it doing anything in relation to the new moon? Is it well placed? Is it having some difficult conversations? What's going on, right? So in this case, we have Mercury having just entered Libra at the new moon. And so Mercury in an air sign is not, like, it is good. It's not in particular dignity. It's sort of neutral. But Mercury is fairly comfortable in the air signs. So that's good. And the other thing is Mercury is actually helping us out with a trickier situation that's going on with regards to this new moon. And that's the fact that the new moon is in an exact square to Mars and Gemini, right? So again, Mars has been in Gemini, just entered Gemini recently. And at the time of the new moon, it will be at 4 degrees 1 minute. So, and an exact square to the new moon. So that, like anything, can bring us some positives and some challenges as well. Well, the sun got really bright, so I'm a little washed out here. Anyhow, maybe it's hiding a multitude of sins. I didn't sleep well last night. Anyhow, okay, so I was talking about Mercury. What's happening here is Mercury, the ruler of the lunation, right, is actually in a positive conversation with Mars. And Mars is in a challenging conversation with the new moon in a square. So Mercury at 1 degree of Libra is kind of like, in some ways, Well, I was going to use the term the saving grace, but I mean, it's going to help us out here. It's the helper. It's the place to look for the assistance, the ease is where Mercury in Libra is. And when I go through all 12 signs, I'll point that out to you, right? And what that's, where that's happening for you specifically. So Mercury trine Mars is like the firm but fair communication, right? Mercury is the planet of communication, thinking, among other things. So the firm but fair communication, or the assertiveness that's required for us to take a stand on something, to have the practical and the essential, those are Virgo keywords, conversations, Mercury. And also, we can look at it as having to do with sort of gaining confidence in a way that's like sort of maybe via like a bold, challenging, resourceful, and practical new beginning, because it's a new moon. So hopefully that makes sense. Wherever Virgo is sitting in the chart, right, whatever house that occupies for you, is the area of life that is being purified in some way. And when I was thinking about the fact that Mars in Gemini is square this new moon, I think of purification by fire in some way, right? Fire is one way that things are purified. So, and Mars is very hot and fiery. Mars, the red planet, right? Mars, the god of war. So I think of purification by fire. So look to the areas of life that Virgo and Gemini occupy. And so Virgo's sort of the where, or the what the new thing is, right? And Gemini is where you have the fire, which could come in various forms. So it could come, via a stressful situation, agitation, a call to action in some way from your own will, and assertiveness. It can come from even like some kind of agitation that Mars is bringing to the table. But that's helping sort of ignite this new beginning, right? That purification by fire piece. Ignite the new beginning that is centered around Virgo, the Virgo area of life. And then Mercury in Libra, that piece it's the diplomacy. It's the mental and the social sort of balance afforded you to make what might be a tense situation feel less so. And to allow it to be as productive as possible rather than destructive, because Mars has the capacity to be destructive, right? Or constructive, to be assertive or aggressive. And so Mercury is kind of, the diplomat that comes in and sort of smooths things over, if you will. So we want to look to the Mercury and Libra piece for where we might find that support, right, for this new beginning. But Mars and Gemini can fire us up. It can be quite positive in the sense that even though it's a square, squares are conversations of tension, of friction. And that energy, as I always say, has to go somewhere when you have a square. Something's got to give. So the best use of that energy, right, is to do something with it, to take action. Otherwise, it kind of has us, right? And it can play out in undesirable ways. So if we willingly harness that energy by taking sort of like a more positive Mars approach, courage, bravery, will, passion, desire, the willingness to kind of stand on our own, to be the first on the scene, to be an individual, those kinds of things, then that's the best use of this energy. Otherwise, we may find ourselves embroiled in disputes, even accidents. The severing of things can be Mars related. Mars in an air sign, right? Mars in Gemini can be like aggressive communications, that kind of thing. So that's ideally what we want to try to avoid. Although sometimes we need to have those kinds of, we need to butt heads a little in order to get things done. So, there's a possibility that can happen. But we're trying to use the energy most productively, like I was saying. So Mars in Gemini is the activation of the renewal, right? Of the new stage, phase, the initiation, whatever is happening at the new moon. Or potentially the irritation that you have to manage that is somehow blocking the new beginning or making it more challenging, kind of thing. Now, the last thing I want to mention to you before I take it through all 12 signs is that Mercury will retrograde on September 9th. Mercury in Libra, right, which is trining Mars and giving us that upliftment, that support, that diplomacy, is going to retrograde in Libra on September 9th to October 1st, right? It's in the shadow phase right now, but that's the actual retrograde. So there will be at that point sort of a going over of the Libra area of your chart. So a reinvention, a time where we need to pay more attention to the details in the Libra area of life, where we have to review, reflect, renew, rethink, all those Mercury retrograde words, as it pertains in this case to the Libra area of life, right? And Libra themes, which may be things like relationships, justice, aesthetic, beauty, art, equality, decision making, sometimes even resources, because Libra is ruled by Venus, those sorts of things. So just to kind of tie that up in a little bow for you, whatever is initiated at the new moon, which is August 27th, right? That involves this Mercury in Libra trine Mars in Gemini, which Mars is square the new moon. So whatever's initiated, there is this energy of like brave or assertive communications, conversations, maybe fighting for justice is a theme I can see, or ideas, information, social connections or social events, communications that are related in some way to equality, to fairness, again, to justice, and those other themes I mentioned, beauty, art, aesthetic, creating balance or harmony, right? That's the Libra, the Mercury retrograde in Libra piece. So again, to remind you that folks with placements around 4 degrees Virgo, give or take a few degrees on either side, or the other mutable signs of Pisces, Gemini, and Sag, will have a more personal experience with this new moon. And just to give a little personal share before I dive into all 12 signs here, if you don't mind, this new moon is conjunct my ascendant, and there's a lot going on personally for me right now. I've started I mentioned this in last video, I have a new contract. I'm doing a job for a local organization, a nonprofit organization. And above and beyond that, for those of you who don't know, and I might as well share it here, because I know some of you that listen here also follow on Facebook and Instagram and such. Although I tend to share more on my personal Facebook about these kinds of things, but nevertheless, I have just completed the initial screening for an autism assessment. And so, long story short, last fall, I made the realization that I am, much to my shock, I am likely autistic. And so, anyways, fast forward to like 9-10 months later, here we are, and I've been fortunate enough to pursue an official diagnosis. And so I just finished the first part of that screening, and the doctor said all roads point in the direction of, high likelihood of autism. And so I'm continuing on with the next stage of the process. And so that's been taking up a lot of time and bandwidth, and there's been a lot to deal with, over and above a lot of other things that have been going on personally for me and my family. So sometimes I feel like when I'm here, I've been a little bit scattered, and I apologize for that. I'm doing my best. But I wanted to share that with you, So one of the interesting things that I learned, I could talk about this for so long, but it's not why we're here, is that autistic people tend to have what they call special interests, right? That you can get sort of like really focused on and all consumed by. And some people have, 1 or 2 or 3 of these for the entirety of their lives. And some people have like 1 or 2 that they focus on, and then a whole bunch of other ones, which has described me over time. And so guess what one of my special interests is? Astrology, right? Obviously. So it's like I go all in when I get bitten by a particular bug, and that's just my nature. Anyway, so the interesting thing is this new moon is on my ascendant. So there's a personal rebirth going on in some way, shape, or form, and that's a huge part of it. So I'm sharing that with you. And then the full moon in Pisces that's coming up in 2 weeks' time, which I didn't mention that actually, but of course, this new moon will culminate in 2 weeks' time at the Pisces full moon, which is on September 10th, 2022. And so we'll reach a point where we have some kind of like a bearing of fruit, or a leveling up, or things coming to light, or, all those things that happen at a full moon in relation to what's initiated now at this new moon. And then, of course, this new moon will culminate in a grander way at the Libra full moon in 6 months from now, right? So, but as I was saying, the new moon's culminating in 2 weeks in Pisces on September 10th. And that just so happens to be right on my natal sun in Pisces. So, whoa, there's a lot going on here, like right on my natal sun. And this is like within a degree of my ascendant, this new moon. So there is a lot of big things happening. All right. Thanks for letting me share that. I really appreciate it. Okay, so let's go through all 12 signs now. I hope I haven't lost some of you. But we're going to start, as we always do, with the sign whose lunation this pertains to most. And in that case, it's Virgo, right? Please listen for your rising sign first and foremost when you're listening to these horoscopes. That will be the most obvious, accurate, predominant, whatever word you want to use, reflection of what's going on in your actual life. And you can if you don't know your rising sign, that's okay. You still listen for your sun sign and your moon sign, and you will get information. You'll get good information, right? You can listen for all three. And as I've mentioned before, if you happen to have a cluster of planets in the particular sign, in this case Virgo, then you can listen for that as well. Even if your sun, moon, or rising's not there, if you have other important placements there, you can listen and you may get some good intel as well. Okay, so let's get on with it. Here we go. Virgo rising, Virgo sun and moon as well. This is your new moon. So if you're a Virgo rising, this is happening in your first house, right? And that means the sun and the moon are coming together in the house of self to initiate a new beginning. And that new beginning is all about you, because the first house is it's how we navigate through life. It speaks to kind of like our trajectory. What happens in the first house impacts everything else, because it's about us. It's about how we came into this world, how we announced ourselves in this world, right? When we were born. And so it's about how we come at the world, how the world perceives us. It's about our physical vitality and appearance even. It is about how we do life in many ways, and our relationship to self. So it's a big deal when we have events in the first house. And in this case, it's a new beginning. It's a fresh start. This can look like things where you're taking on some kind of a new role, like me, or you are deciding to come at the world differently, or you are somehow being perceived by people in a different way. So for me, for example, like I was saying, with this, in the process of this autism diagnosis, there's a lot of people in my life, or even who've known me on social media, that are kind of like, what? What's going on? Who are you now? And what? And all of that is happening. So, it can be that kind of an experience. It can be, like I said, some kind of a new title, and that can come about in all sorts of ways, right? Whether it be a job change or a relationship status change, or just what you call yourself, a change in pronouns even. Like, it can be all kinds of things. It can be a change in your appearance where you decide that you're going to adopt a different manner of dress, of style. It can be, a new haircut even. Sometimes it's just the simple things. It can be, Nigella has a lot to say about this. It can be, your, like, a commitment to self, where you are deciding that you're going to take better care of your health. And so maybe in a very Virgoan way, you're paying close attention to what you're putting in your body, how you're treating your surroundings, all kinds of things like that. So that's what's happening as far as the new moon piece goes for you, Virgo. But then we've got this square, right? Mars in the 10th house, which is your house, Mars and Gemini in the 10th house, which is about career matters, your public persona and reputation, your public status sort of thing, the legacy that you wish to leave. It can have to do with parents, even authority figures, generally speaking, your own authority. So this is where Mars is. There's a lot of that Martian energy going on in your 10th house for a long time, because Mars is in there for like 7 months, right? And it's given a real going over to that area of your life. So there can be a lot of activity and even challenges regarding those themes that I just mentioned. But there's also a real opportunity here for you to be brave and courageous and take up the charge in some way, to be assertive in that area of life, right? And hopefully we're not looking at things like, arguments with authority figures, or challenges, difficult challenges at work, or challenges to your public reputation in some way, or a challenge to the legacy you wish to leave in some way. You know, those are all possibilities, but let's remember, Mercury's over there in Libra, in your second house of personal resources and your finances, your time, your energy, you know, your money, your how you get your basic needs met, your sense of self-worth, what you value. These are all second house things. And Mercury is there being the diplomat, trying to balance things and bring some harmony to that area of life. And it's talking in harmony with Mars in the 10th house, right? I told you there's a trine. If you listen to the introduction, and I hope you did, there is this trine, which has a Jupiterian quality about it. Trines are of the nature of Jupiter. They are expansive. They uplift, right? And so that's Mercury's trying to give you a hand there, right? Yes, work may be extra busy. There may be some challenges to overcome, for example, but ultimately it can have a positive impact on your finances, for example, or on your sense of self-worth, for example, right? And all of that is speaking to a fresh start for you because of the new moon in your first house. So hopefully that all makes sense to you, Virgo. And I'm going to move on now to Leo. So Nigella's at my feet rolling around, if you could see her here. Anyways, Leo rising, Leo sun and moon as well, but Leo rising specifically, this is happening in your second house. So this new moon is a chance for a new beginning, something new being conceived of or initiated in your second house of finances, of what you value, of self-worth, of, you know, your resources in general. So that can be money, or it can also speak to your time and energy. And it's about like you're getting your basic needs met in many ways. And so there's a fresh start on offer there for you. Something new, some new way of doing resources, for example, right? Or something new, maybe a new way of making money coming into your experience, or something that has to do. Sometimes the second house speaks to our material possessions as well, so there could be something going on around that. But it's very much, the second house is very much about you know, how we get our needs met, and in this day and age, that's largely has to do with money, right? And so a new beginning there, and there may be some kind of a challenge posed by Mars in your 11th house of friends, the group, networks, you know, associations, allies and supporters. So your hopes and dreams for the future, right? So there can be a call to action coming from that area of life. Like I mentioned, Mars can require you to be courageous and brave, to have like willpower and to stand on your own 2 feet, to be assertive, maybe with friends or associates or allies and supporters, to hopefully not, you know, be combative with those people or butt heads with those people. You know, I was saying to you in the introduction, Mars in a square can have that impact if we're not really being conscious about it. So be mindful of that. It's, you know, it is allowing you, like maybe it's, let's look at some practical scenarios here. Maybe you have allies and supporters that are rooting for you, right? Fighting for you. And somehow that's going to allow you to improve your finances in some way, or to get your needs met more readily, or be some kind of a new way of making money, or a new way of like a rebirth of self-worth in some way, potentially. There could also be like ideally this isn't, you know, arguments with those kinds of people over resources or what have you, or challenges to that. But we do have Mercury. This is a good time to bring that into the conversation. Mercury and Libra in your third house, right? So this is about diplomatic communications. This is about what you do, the meaningful rituals that take place on the day-to-day, how you make meaning on the daily basis, right? And the people, it's like what goes on in your immediate environment, and that can include the people in your immediate environment, like peers, siblings, cousins, neighbors, community members, friends who feel like siblings. It can have to do with communications. It can have to do with education. It can have to do with commerce and marketing. Those are all third house themes. I could go on. A third house is a very busy place, but there's something transpiring there. And maybe it's, Mercury and Libra in the third house. Maybe it's your way with words, with if you're somebody that has to communicate on a daily basis, potentially, for your work or something, right? I mean, we all have to communicate on a daily basis, but you know what I mean? And so, and that can be helpful. It is potentially diplomatic and harmonious relations with peers, siblings, cousins, those people that I mentioned. It can have to do with some sort of like I feel like this could have something to do with like your daily rituals, bringing more sort of balance and harmony, and even a sense of like artistic, flair, or some kind of like focus on the aesthetic. For some people it can be that, because Mercury and Libra, that can be helpful to you here. So I mean, we could always say more, but I think that gives you plenty to go on, including the introduction, Leo. And I'm going to move on to Cancer now. So Cancer, for you, you have this new moon in Virgo happening in your third house. So you have an opportunity for a fresh start, for something being initiated as it pertains to the rituals you do on the day-to-day that are meaningful to you, the people and things in your immediate environment that are meaningful to you, that you interact with on the day-to-day. So siblings, cousins, neighbors, community members, friends that feel like siblings. There can be things that have to do with marketing and communications and education in some way, that can have to do with young people, even sometimes in the third house. Maybe even something that involves like short jaunts, short trips, can be third house related as well. So there's something going on here that it's a new, like maybe it could be like a sibling or one of those aforementioned people that has something new going on that is somehow like it involves you, right, in some way, as well. It could have something to do with that. And then you've got Mars in the 12th house that is in a challenging square to this, whatever wants to get off the ground here in the third house. Mars in the 12th, can be a bit tricky. There could be some oh goodness, there could be a lot of activity. Okay, let's put it this way. There could be a lot of activity around certain institutions, like for some people, this won't pertain to everyone, but like hospitals, long-term care facilities, even like spiritual retreat centers, or even things like vacation or vacation homes, or rehab facilities, things like that, right? Where you're kind of like, you're away from your normal daily routine. And so there's some challenges going on there. There may be a call to action that's required as far as that area of life goes. This can be, the 12th house can speak to sort of our blind spots as well, to secrets, things we weren't aware of. There can be issues around, endings and losses and things just sort of like coming to a natural conclusion in the 12th house as well. The 12th house can speak to our spiritual life in some way, and anything that's sort of unseen, right? Even our dreams. And so Mars there, I mean, maybe, you're having a lot of challenging dreams. That's one way this could play out. Or there's some sort of like new information coming to light, secrets being revealed, that may be a bit challenging, that may in some way have to do with, again, siblings, cousins, neighbors, that sort of thing, or education, or something like that. But then you've got Libra in your 4th house, which is where Mercury is, right? In trine to Mars at the time of this new moon. And so that piece that's kind of helping us smooth things over in some way, that is, the diplomat in some way. That's what I see Mercury in Libra as. I mean, among other things, but that's a really good image, I think, that it conjures up. So, and that's for you, that's sitting in your 4th house of home, family, roots, parents, real estate, emotional security. So that can feel, that's an area of life that's going to get it going over for a few weeks, starting, September 9th, because Mercury will retrograde there. So there'll be a lot of things to kind of reconsider and go over in that 4th house. But ultimately, it is supporting, it's in support of whatever's going on in the 12th house that I just mentioned to you. And ultimately, all of that is speaking to this kind of initiation or fresh start in the 3rd house, right? So, okay, I think that's enough to go on, Cancer. Please listen to the introduction, and I'm going to move on to Gemini. Gemini, for you, this is happening in your 4th house. So you've got a new moon happening in the 4th house of home, family, roots, place of living, real estate matters, emotional security, parents, parenting, these sorts of things. There's a new beginning here. There is, maybe you're initiating something, or the universe is doing that for you. And whatever that is, there's some challenges coming from the 1st house, which is you, the 1st house of self. So the challenges are posed by either maybe you are, with Mars there in the 1st house, maybe you're, struggling with some aggression, some assertiveness, some anger. Maybe there's just a lot required of you, a lot of activity. Maybe there's a lot of sort of like courage and assertiveness required of you right now. Maybe there's something going on, hopefully not, but like, you're challenged because you have to have maybe some kind of like a procedure, like even a medical procedure, or like a minor surgery or something like that, or something with your physical self is posing a challenge to this 4th house new beginning in some way. And what I want to say to you here is that try to use that Mars energy as productively as possible. So rather than like bashing heads with people or coming across like, kind of like a pit bull sort of thing. No offense to pit bulls. But just be mindful of how you are presenting, how you're being perceived. Assertive, awesome. Aggressive, not so much, right? So, yeah, that's my advice to you. And also I would say with Mars in the first house, just be mindful of like, accidents, like just, and that can sometimes come about from just rushing around and having too much on the go sort of thing. So just be mindful of that. So, I mean, or this could be something as, like I said, you might have some like minor procedure scheduled during this time and it is somehow making it challenging for like a home life, right? It could be something like that. But then you have this help, this buoyancy, this upliftment, this diplomacy of Mercury and Virgo in your fifth house, which is helping ease, quell the heat a little bit. And so Mercury in your fifth house, which Mercury will retrograde there between September 9th and October 2nd. So we'll get a real going over in the fifth house for you. There'll be some things to revisit and review and details to go over. But that is in relation to fifth house themes of children. It can have to do with anything revolving around, children, childbearing, pregnancy, your creative self-expression, creative projects, entrepreneurship, even hobbies, special interests, sports, even, and really what you do for fun in life, what brings you pleasure, right? So Mercury in Libra is really giving you the opportunity to reassess that area of life when it retrogrades. But at the time of this new moon, it is taking a challenging situation and smoothing it over as best it can. So that might come in the form of like, it could be like your child is somehow helpful in the situation, right? Good things are happening for your child even, or your child is helping you in some way. It could be something like that for some of you. Okay, so we're going to move on to Taurus now. Taurus, for you, this new moon in Virgo is in your fifth house, right? New moon in the fifth house of children, of anything revolving around children, of your creative pursuits and special interests and hobbies and even sports, entrepreneurship, and what you do for fun. So, and pleasure, the things that you like, the pleasure pursuits in your life. So there is a fresh start on offer here. Something new is being initiated. And it could be something new happening in the life of your children, something new involving you that has to do with kids in some way, or a new creative project, or a new hobby, or a new way of having fun, a new opportunity to do something pleasurable, that sort of thing. New romance, even in the fifth house. So something new there, but there's a challenge being posed by Mars in the second house, which is your personal resources, your finances, the money you make from your skills and talents, also your time and energy, getting your basic needs met, your sense of self-worth, what you put value on. These are all second house themes. So what I can see here is that Mars may have you very actively pursuing new ways of making money, or having some challenges with resources potentially, or just a lot of activity around resources going on. But it's like, but it's somehow like challenging that fifth house, that pleasure area of the chart, or that area that has to do with kids. So this could be like, you need to spend a lot of money on your kids right now, for something new, like maybe they're going away to school, right? And that's impacting your finances. This could be money spent on fertility procedures, that kind of thing. This could be, what else could it be? So many things. This could be a creative project, a creative pursuit that requires you to spend some money, or that you have to put a lot of effort in to make money from it. Or what's the last thing I'm going to say about that is it could be like you want to do something fun, but you have to like work extra hours to make the money to do it, or something along those lines, right? But then you've got Mercury and Libra in your 6th house. So Mercury is being the diplomat there, trying to smooth things over a little, and it will be retrograde in that area of the chart as well. So some extra focus on the 6th house for a while, which has to do with your health, excuse me, your health and wellness. You know, routines around that, with how you are in service, with the work you do on the day-to-day, whether that's paid or unpaid work, the daily grind kind of thing, and potentially pets is 6th house related too, for those it pertains to. So that's where Mercury is, and Mercury is helping this situation at the time of the new moon. So it may be that, you know, you're feeling really energetic and healthy, and so that's allowing you to have fun, have more fun, or to take up a sport, or somehow the work you're doing is feeling like it's paying off, and it's affording a new beginning in that 5th house area of life in some way. And it may be allowing you to bring in more money in some way, something along those lines. Oh gosh, there's so much more I could always say, but I think that leaves you enough to go on Taurus. The last thing I'll say is when Mercury does retrograde in that 6th house, this can be a time when you're looking at your work routines, your daily routines, your health issues around that, and it's a good time to kind of pay attention to those details and fine tune them when Mercury retrogrades. Okay, so we're going to move on from Taurus to Aries next. So Aries, for you, Nigella's still at my feet here. Aries, you've got the new moon happening in your 6th house, right? So a new beginning happening in your house of daily work, you know, the daily grind, how you are of service, the checking off the ticky boxes that we all have to do on the day-to-day, the work we do that's, you know, sometimes our paid daily work, sometimes it's not paid work, and it can feel like a bit of, you know, we're doing a lot of work and not seeing a lot of reward for it sometimes in the 6th house. The 6th house speaks to illness, health. I don't think I said that yet. To pets potentially as well. So this is where there's this new beginning on offer, right? Or you're starting something new in this area of life, a new way of doing this area of life. And it could be like involve these Virgo themes of like taking care of details, of purifying, those sorts of things. But there's this challenge from Mars in your 3rd house, right? So either like a challenge is not always a bad thing. We talked about this in the introduction. So it can be like giving you the drive, the will, the passion, the assertiveness to take care of certain things. Or, you know, there may be some, maybe aggression, butting heads. And this is all transpiring in your 3rd house of siblings, of community members, peers, cousins, you know, those kinds of relatives, friends who feel like siblings, of your daily rituals and the meaning that those bring to your life. so the important rituals on the day-to-day that you do, that are different from the sixth house rituals, because they bring you meaning, right? Whereas the sixth house can kind of just feel like a slog. The third house is also, it can have to do with education. It can have to do with communications, commerce, marketing, these sorts of things. So there's something going on there that is in a challenging square to this new moon, but it can give you, again, the drive, the will, the passion. So you can be maybe, something that just flashed into my head was like, you could be working on some kind of a new system, that you're going to use to take care of your daily like tasks, or adopting some kind of new technology or app or something like that. Or there could be something going on in the life of a sibling or a cousin or something like that, that has to do with health matters in a challenging way, or that has to do with your work, or being of service in some way. Community health just came to mind. So, but there can be real opportunity here for you to maybe assert yourself with those people, or be really sort of powerful in how you communicate. Self-advocacy when it comes to health issues, I think of, or advocating for somebody else, or when it comes to work, asserting yourself in terms of your work, taking a stand there. So the other piece I want to mention is, of course, the Mercury and Libra piece, which is in your 7th house, right? So this is where the upliftment is happening. This is where the buoyancy is happening. This is where the diplomacy is happening. And this is where Mercury will retrograde between September 9th and October 2nd. And so there'll be a going over with a fine-tooth comb of that area of life. And that's your relationship zone, right? So relationships with significant others in your life. And that can range from like a marriage partner to business associates to close friends and family that you have that kind of a one-to-one relationship with. It can have to do with contracts and agreements as well. So something going on here, Mercury and Libra, right? Trying to restore some balance, bring some harmony, pleasantries to that area of life that may be helping you with what's transpiring around the time of this new moon. So, okay, Aries, I'm going to leave that there. I'm going to move on to Pisces now, where Pisces, you have the new moon kicking off something in your 7th house of one-to-one close personal relationships, right? So Virgo is your opposite sign. The new moon is happening in Virgo across the sky from your sign. And so it's in the 7th house. And this is a new beginning, a fresh start, something being conceived of, in relation to partnership. So this can be something new in the life of somebody that's significant to you. So a marriage partner or a business partner or a close friend, family member, something new regarding contracts and agreements. That's happening, right, for you. So a new relationship, a new milestone in relationship, a new milestone for a partner, like I said, a new business relationship, a new contract, any of those things, right, can be happening right now at the time of this new moon. And there's some challenge from Mars in your 4th house of home, family, roots, place of living, parents, emotional security. So Mars is either, there can be some some tension on the home front, or just like a lot of activity going on. Some sense of assertiveness that's happening there. There can be, hopefully not aggression, right? That have to do with these things. I mean, this can be like a bid for real estate. I can see even, um, or something going on the home front that's impacting your partnerships in some way, right? And like this can be for better or worse when we're talking about Mars in a square. Like I mentioned this in the intro, so please listen to the intro. Ideally, we want to be proactive and constructive with this Mars energy, this Mars and Gemini energy, rather than aggressive and destructive, right? So that is all happening for you between the 7th and the 4th house, that new beginning in the 7th, Mars in the 4th. But then you also have Mercury and Libra in your 8th house. And so this is bringing the diplomacy, the smoothing things over, the harmony, the restoring of balance in some way to your 8th house of resources, meaning, other people's resources. So these are things like loans, debts, taxes, insurance, wills, inheritance, Nigella is on my foot. Sometimes it's the area of life where we're feeling like we're not really in the driver's seat. We're not really in control with 8th house matters. It's like we are having to accept what's going on. We are feeling a sense of, we can feel a bit like fearful or obsessive because we feel like we don't have control, right? This can also be sometimes sort of like the depths, right? The psychological depths, our psychological wounds and things like that, our intimate connections with others, our 8th house. So Mercury in Libra there is trying to sort of smooth things over, balance things out there, be the diplomat there. And that's ultimately supporting what's going on with Mars in your 4th house and kind of smoothing over the challenges when it comes to the 7th house new beginning, right? In terms of your relationships and potentially contracts and agreements, like I said as well. So let me just give you one or two real world scenarios to give you something to go on here. Potential. So new beginning in relationship. Maybe something's happening in the life of a partner that's new, and that's causing some disruptions on the home front. Lots of activity maybe, or just like even things like home renovations can be, right? But then Mercury in your 8th house is like giving you some support. So like something big happening for your partner means more action on the home front, but means maybe more money for your partner that ultimately then allows you to take care of things on the home front. Or you want to do some kind of home renovation, you and your partner, and you get, you're able to secure a loan from the bank or remortgage or something like that. Or there's something going on here with your relationship and parents or family. There could be like, I see things here like potentially even like inheritance. That's not going to pertain to everybody, but for some people, that like maybe a partner or some kind of a contract or an agreement is being, like maybe you're renegotiating a mortgage, that's a possibility right now. Or your partner gets a tax return, and then that allows you to take care of some things at home. So there's so many scenarios here. There may be like parenting involved. That may be a bit of a challenge in some ways as well, just because of Mars in the fourth house for you, Pisces rising. So, okay, I'm going to leave that there for you, and I'm going to move on to Aquarius now. So Aquarius, for you, the new moon's happening in your eighth house. So there's a fresh start on offer, a new beginning possible as it pertains to eighth house matters. What are eighth house matters? Well, the eighth house is other people's resources, right? It is things like taxes, debt, loans, wills, mortgages, inheritance, bursaries, scholarships, all of these kinds of things. And it can also be about your intimate connections with others. You know, it can be about your psychological sort of wounding and healing, and the transformations, the deep transformations that can come about by dealing with the difficult things in life. You know, it's the house of, traditionally we call, you know, the eighth house the house of death and taxes, right? But you don't have to take that literally. We see big transformations happening when we're talking about eighth house themes, and lots of deep healing. You know, the eighth house speaks very much to where we feel like we are not in control, and that can be very challenging. So there's a new beginning here in some way, shape, or form for you at the time of this Virgo new moon. And there's a bit of a challenge happening from something transpiring in the fifth house, or a call to action, or a lot of activity being called for, a lot of courage, or assertiveness, that kind of thing, right? With Mars in the fifth house of your pleasure pursuits, your creative interests and hobbies, your children, or children that you're associated with somehow, issues around children, how you have fun, hobbies, special interests, that kind of thing, romance even. So, excuse me, that's where the call to action is, shall we say, Aquarius rising. There may be a lot of activity going on with, you know, if you're somebody that has kids or works with kids, or there's something in your life that involves kids, there could be a lot going on for them. Hopefully not things like aggression, and you know, Mars can sometimes be about things like, you know, accidents or medical procedures or things like that. And for some people that will pertain. It doesn't have to be a big scary thing though. Or just a lot of like activity around, like this could be, you know, on a less ominous, in a less ominous way, this could be something like a lot of activity around a hobby or a special interest, like maybe you're going like I don't know, skydiving or something like that, or mountain climbing, or, you know, whitewater rafting, or I don't know, something along those lines. Doing some kind of pleasure pursuit that feels like a rush, or there's a lot of courage required. Maybe in terms of a creative project, right? That's another way this could play out. But that Mars is challenging the eighth house, which is like I was telling you all those themes already. So, you know, maybe some kind of venture that involves shared resources in some way, right, is challenged by children, by pleasure pursuits, by your creative self-expression, that sort of thing. And I want to mention to you, of course, that you've got Mercury in Libra in your ninth house, which is helping whatever's going on here, right? It is in a trine, as we talked about in the introduction. So that's that more buoyant aspect, that more helpful, uplifting aspect. And Mercury is retrograding there between September 9th and October 7th. No, October 2nd, sorry. And so Mercury is the diplomat in Libra. It's smoothing things over. It's restoring balance and harmony. And in the ninth house, well, what is that about? That's about things like expanding your horizons, like the quest that you're on, like mind expansion in some way, right? So what you're learning or teaching, it can be about justice. It can be about higher learning. It can be about travel. And it can be about foreign people and places, people and places that are different from you, that you can learn something from. Politics, law, these are ninth house. Philosophy, like how you view the world in some way. So that's where Mercury in Libra is, and that is really helping out this situation between the 8th and 5th house that's going on, and ideally making it sort of like the more optimal presentation of Mars, right? So we talked about what that is in the introduction. So definitely listen to the introduction. I can see themes, like I'm just sort of riffing here, but some kind of like travel or adventure. And there's something involving kids or pleasure or fun or creativity. And in some way, that is a new level of maybe intimacy in relationship, or that is there's a new commitment around shared resources, or there is a somehow purifying of shared resources in some way, like, or somehow a purifying of psychological, kind of depths, wounds. So, oh my goodness, so much I could say, always Aquarius. So I'm going to leave that there for you though, and carry on and talk to Capricorn now, because Capricorn, for you, this is happening in your ninth house. So you've got a new moon in Virgo, which is a fellow earth sign, happening in your ninth house, right? And for you, that's a new beginning, a new, like something's being initiated as it relates to how you view the world. This can be about higher learning. It can be about adventure. It can be about the search for sort of truth and meaning, the quest that you're on. It can be about travel, usually like sort of farther away travel or long distance travel. It can be about people and places that are different from you in some way, that you can learn things from and have a new experience that can shift your worldview in some way. It can be about education, publishing, teaching, learning, religion, politics, justice. Those are all ninth house. This mind expanding area, right? So, in this area where it's like there's a call to adventure in some way. So for you, Capricorn, there's a new opportunity there. Maybe an opportunity to travel, maybe an opportunity for a new course of study, maybe an opportunity to somehow, maybe something's going on as far as like, justice in some way for some folks. Maybe, pardon me, some kind of like an opportunity for sharing your knowledge. So the challenge comes from Mars in the 6th house of your daily grind, your daily work, checking off the ticky boxes, your health and wellness, issues around that, routines around that, pets potentially, in the 6th house. The work you do on the day to day, whether it's paid or unpaid work, how you are in service, right? So there can be a lot of like maybe challenges or a lot of activity on the home front, or not on the home front, in your daily like work, in your daily existence. There can be a call for action, a call to action there. There can be like, Mars can bring like assertion, which is better than aggression. That's not what we want. There can be like involvement, like health matters that have to do something with like medical procedures or something when we're talking about Mars, that are somehow challenging whatever wants to happen in the 9th house, right? Of like travel, of higher education, of whatever it is for you, that I one of those things that I just mentioned. But then you've got Mercury and Libra in your 10th house. And that's smoothing things over. It's being the diplomat. It is allowing for some restoration of balance and that sort of thing. And that has to do with Mercury is in your 10th house from, it's going to retrograde there from September 9th to October 2nd. So it's spending longer than it normally does in a sign because it's retrograding. And that's this time of sort of taking care of the details of fine tuning, of going over and reviewing and reflecting on your public life, right? 10th house. So this can be your career. This can be your public reputation and the legacy you wish to leave. This can be about authority figures, parents, sometimes your own sense of authority and leadership. So there is something, balanced and harmonious. And like I said, maybe you're the diplomat in some way in the arena of career. You're coming across like that publicly, so, and that is somehow helping support this new moon, which is challenged by Mars, your 9th and 6th houses. So, you want to go on a trip. There's some kind of like an issue at your daily work, but a higher up makes it happen for you. There could be, or just because of your, like maybe you are the higher up, so you get to make the decisions. There is maybe some kind of like a program you want to do or something like that, like or university might be starting for some folks, for example. But there's a lot of work involved, right? 6th house, day to day. Or there could be like maybe like challenges to health and wellness that are being presented here that require you to push through. But somebody in a position of authority can help. So I think sometimes I just could go off in all directions. And if you didn't listen to the intro, that's my autism speaking. So, I could be very wordy because I can just get so like into what I'm talking about. And I just want to tell you all the things, and not everybody wants to hear all the things. So anyway, okay. Because I don't want to forget to tell you something or miss something important. That's also my Virgo rising. Anyways, all right, that was a special treat for you there, Capricorn. Okay, I'm going to move on now to Sagittarius. Sagittarius rising. Sag, you are having this new moon experience in your 10th house. So a fresh start, a new beginning, conceiving of something new with regards to your public life, to your the legacy you wish to leave, to your career, your worldly ambitions, to authority figures, your own authority, something new happening in that area. And there is some kind of a challenge being posed by Mars in your seventh house of one-to-one relationships or contracts and agreements is the seventh house as well. So Mars there could be like, you know, there could be like a lot going on for a partner. A partner could be being extra sort of like assertive right now, or there could be some aggression from a partner or a business associate, or some competition with somebody, or like for a contract maybe, or some kind of a competition with somebody else, for like maybe for a promotion, because this new moon is in the 10th house, something along those lines. But the good news is you've got Mercury in your 11th house, which is smoothing things over and being the diplomat. And maybe that's friends or allies and supporters that are going to put in a good word for you, for example. You know, because the 11th house is about our allies, our supporters, our hopes and dreams for the future, our friendship groups, you know, that sort of thing, networks. So even online communities in this day and age. So that's like a very real world potential scenario that I can see going on for some Sagittarius rising folks. What else could this look like? Okay, so here's another scenario. 10th house. There is something going on for you that's quite sort of like public in your public life in some way, shape, or form. And it's there's a lot, it's being challenged because there's something going on in your partner's life or your business associate's life, or something like that is challenging that your public, you know, experience of life, or how or your career ambitions, or things like that. But again, there could be allies, supporters, friends that can help you smooth things over, that can play the role of the diplomat even, in some ways. So, okay, so I think that's good, Sagittarius. Please listen to the introduction because you're going to get so much more out of this if you do that. And I'm going to move on to Scorpio now. So Scorpio, for you, the new moon in Virgo is happening in your 11th house. Opportunity for a fresh start, for a new beginning, something being initiated as it pertains to your hopes and dreams for the future, your allies and supporters, friends, friendship groups, networks, that sort of thing. And so there's a, you know, potential for something new here. You're intending something new, maybe in that arena, something new going on for friends, or a friend. And there's a challenge there being posed by Mars in the 8th house, right? So, which is other people's resources. So this can be shared resources. This can be resources like of a partner, or it can be things like your taxes, debt, wills, insurance, loans, mortgages, scholarships, bursaries, those kinds of things. It's also about your intimate relationships, those folks that you really share an intimate connection with. It can be about your psychological sort of depths, right? The wounding and the healing. It can be about where we feel like we don't have a lot of control over things in the 8th house as well. So we can be a bit obsessive and fearful, right? Because when you feel kind of like out of control, then that tends to be what happens. There can be deep transformation that happens in the 8th house of some description. So there's a challenge here, right? But there can be like a call to action here as well, like a call to like maybe to like pay back some debt, maybe to deal with an institution like a bank or an insurance company or something like that. Maybe or something around like even a mortgage. There can be resources. There can be like sort of some entanglements with resources and friends in some way as well that can feel a bit like challenging. But you've got Mercury in your 12th house in Libra, right? And that is helping the situation. That's Mercury in Libra is the diplomat, right? It's smoothing things over. It's helping you out there. It's going over that area of the chart for a little while because it will retrograde between September 9th and October 2nd. So over the details with the fine-tooth comb, and allowing you to review, revisit, reflect, all of those things. On 12th house matters. What is that? Well, this can be secrets. This can be your blind spots. This can be things, your unconscious sort of things that go on in the unconscious, things that go on behind closed doors. This can be things like that involve directly anything that sort of takes you away from your daily routine, even your daily work for some people. But for some people, it is where they spend their daily work. And these are things like institutions like hospices, hospitals, long-term care facilities, rehab facilities. What else? Oh, retreats of any kind, like spiritual retreat or vacation places, that kind of thing. What else? This can be like things coming to like a natural conclusion, to a close, to things being sort of like released, or things ending in some way in the 12th house as well. So maybe an ending to challenges with friends and resources. I don't know. Maybe maybe new associations, like with friends, with networks, with groups, with like allies and supporters in some way. That may somehow be connected to one of those places that I talked about, or that may somehow ultimately like there's an ending that goes on that leads to a new beginning, right? So in the area of allies and supporters and friends and that kind of thing as well. Okay, so that's for you, Scorpio. Scorpio rising, please listen to the intro for all the goods. And I'm going to move on finally to, last but not least, to Libra. So Libra, for you, the new moon in Virgo is happening in your 12th house. So this is a fresh start, a new opportunity, a chance for initiating something as it pertains to an interesting place in the chart for a new beginning, because the 12th house can often speak to endings, to closure. But, we know endings lead into new beginnings, right? But this can also be about things like secrets being revealed that lead to something new. Things coming up from, the unconscious, the subconscious, your blind spots somehow being, like something is initiated there that may then be illuminated at the time of the new moon in a couple of weeks. Or there could be something going on involving how you retreat from the world. You could be going on vacation. It could be something simple as that. There could be something revolving around, retreat, vacation, how you spend time in solitude, rest, recovery, recuperation. Sometimes we see things like places involved, like retreat centers, like I said, vacation places, but also sometimes things like rehab facilities, spiritual, I already said that, retreat centers, hospitals, long-term care facilities, anything like that, right? There is potential for something revolving around that. Like for some people, that's just part of your work. And so there could be something initiated that involves, the workplace for some people, because that's where you spend your time. But then we've got the challenges from Mars in the 9th house. So this is a lot of activity around, or some challenges being brought to the table. Like whatever this new thing you want to do, like maybe let's just take a nice scenario, like you want to retreat, you want to go on vacation. But the 9th house, potential travel, foreign people in places, or people that are far away from you, different from you. Things like, air travel. It can be even things like politics, justice, your worldview, higher learning pursuits. What else can like college, university studies, these sorts of things. So something there is a challenge, right? Like maybe you're planning on retreating or going on a vacation, but like there's something going on around those travel plans that's a challenge. Or like this could be like I don't know, 12th house, this could be like starting a new course of study, right? Mars in the 9th house, to be a healthcare worker in some way, shape, or form, something along those lines, and Mars is like requiring like that passion, that courage, that will, that drive in the 9th house of higher learning. And then you've got Mercury in your 1st house, Mercury in Libra, in your sign, and it will retrograde there between September 9th and October 2nd, like we talked about in the intro. And at the time of this new moon, it's supporting whatever, it's smoothing over the challenges and helping Mars be more productive rather than destructive, right? And so this comes from you, because the 1st house is you. It's your approach. It's how you approach things. It is how you are perceived. It's how you come at the world. It can speak to things like even your physical appearance, your sense of vitality, physical vitality, even how you approach the world. So, you're the silver-tongued diplomat at this time with Mercury in your sign, Libra, and you can be really smoothing over the challenges and helping whatever is going on, whatever is being initiated now in that 12th house area. you can help things go more smoothly there. You know, rise to the occasion and use Mars energy productively. So, okay, oh gosh, I could always say so much more, but I think I'm out of breath after an hour and 45 minutes. And I need a break. So I'm going to leave this here for now. And I will hopefully see you in a couple of weeks' time for the full moon in Pisces, which is happening on September 10th. So check back